go to term life insurance and when does it make sense? So I've had some clients where I did have one who had a very specific bequeath result. So they wanted to give X amount of money to their nephews. That's fine. And that's actually a way to kind of check the box. I bought this insurance. If I die, my nephews get $1 million. If you're kind of in the die with zero approach, probably less of an issue, but sometimes that exists. For charities, that can also work. But also, we're going to have a debate about should I put my money into the market and invest it, or should I buy insurance? So remember, life insurance is insurance. It is not an investment. And you'll see this stuff online. Well, I invest through my life insurance. No, that's not exactly it. And what they're talking about is whole life insurance has a combination of insurance and investing together. And as I always say, that's like a spork. It's a spoon and a fork that does neither job well.
Welcome to the Childfree Wealth Podcast, hosted by Bree and Dr. J, Certified Financial Planner. Here we discuss life and finances as it relates to being child-free. This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please consult your advisor before implementing any ideas heard on this podcast.
Hey, Childfree Wealth listeners, how about life insurance? Do we need it? Can we skip it? Should we get more? That's what we're going to dive in today, is this question of life insurance for child-free folks. And just a heads up, Bree and I were fighting about this earlier this morning. So if it goes that direction, that's where it goes. I mean, the challenge is that life insurance is sold to everybody, and the assumption is you just need it. And I talking to a colleague who worked at one of the big insurance companies who shall remain nameless. We're going to try not to bash any one company, although I really want to. And in that company, their goal was for your life insurance policy per month to be the same as your mortgage payment. To me, that is just wrong. I mean, that is just wrong. And somebody asked, I don't know if it was Bree or somebody else asked me, how is it legal to do that and tell somebody they should do it? Remember, insurance agents are not fiduciaries. They can call themselves financial advisors, but they don't even have to push your interest ahead of their own. And they get paid commission. So if they can sell it to you, then it's on you. Buyer beware. What do you think, Bree?
Yeah, it's a fun topic to jump into and talk about because, we often say child-free people don't need life insurance. And then sometimes there can be a little bit of nuance to things, but it's a conversation of it's not an automatic yes, whereas so many times everybody just treats it as an automatic yes.
Yeah, and just to give you the way my brain works, if I'm looking at a child-free person or a child-free couple and they ask about life insurance, my first answer is no, unless they prove otherwise. It's kind of like starting with no, you don't need it versus starting with the default that everybody needs it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Which sounds simple, but whatever. You follow the Dave Ramsey baby steps, whatever, and they're like, oh, you need 10 to 12 times your income in life insurance. Not necessarily. And just to be clear, there's different types of life insurance. We're going to go into all different types, but really I want to start with two buckets. One is your employer offers life insurance. It's whatever, $5 a paycheck or $20 a paycheck or something for a couple times your salary. I really don't care if you buy that or not. I think I was looking at something for somebody else, it was $3. I'm like, fine, buy it. Just go ahead. It's not going to hurt you. The likelihood that you claim on is actually pretty low, but for $3, who cares? And it's kind of I guess they still have this in some places where, if you make a donation, you can wear jeans on Friday. I don't care if you have to pay that money either, but it's at kind of that same level of if it's employer provided, really cheap, fine.
Yeah, that's fair. Absolutely. When it's super cheap and it's employer provided, I think there's nothing wrong with grabbing it. I mean, I was talking about it this morning and I was like, I spent more on drinks this weekend than I would have on life insurance. And so I think if it's something that small, many people already have it and they probably don't even realize you're paying for it. So don't go and try and buy a policy outside of work. Just look to see what you have already. That can be an often missed thing.
Well, if we're going by the measure of what you paid for drinks this week, I mean, there's a lot of things we could justify buying. Just saying.
Oh, no, I think many people would be sorely disappointed with my overall drink budget. But yeah, that's true.
Your drink budget from last night is more than I've ever spent in my life.
Maybe.
I
That's
don't
probably
drink.
true.
I don't drink. So, like, just kind of just saying. No. And so, okay, you got the work policy. Fine. That's set aside. Then we're going to talk about the other stuff. So, in general, if I'm going to recommend life insurance to somebody, it's going to be what's called term life insurance. And here's how this works. You spend some money, you get 20-year term, 30-year term, whatever the period of time is. And let's say you get $1 million policy with 20-year term. What that means, if you die in the next 20 years, whoever you put as your beneficiary is going to get $1 million. But if you live through the 20 years, they get nothing. It disappears at the end. This is opposed to, we'll talk about it a little bit later, whole or permanent life, where it may keep going. But term life insurance is for a certain period of time and for a certain need. And the general rule is you need term life insurance if somebody else is relying on you for their income, which could be, like if you're a soloist and nobody's relying on your income, your need for term life insurance is probably near zero. If, on the other hand, maybe your spouse is disabled and they rely on you, or you're caring for your parents and they're relying on you, it's gotta be where like, if you stop working because you're dead, I mean, let's be real, like that's what we're talking about here, that they couldn't make ends meet without the money.
Yeah. And that's a conversation that you really need to have and sit down and look at your expenses and see what they look like and whether or not that fits you, because it's not going to fit everyone. And sometimes people will say, well, what about this? What about that? You really have to sit down and look at it yourself. Like, that's when you need to sit down with a professional and go through and figure out, does that fit for you? I think there are cases where if you are just working, you're both a dual income household and you're going ahead doing your job, not really a whole lot fancy going on with your finances, then go ahead and just look at your numbers and go from there. But if you're a soloist, well, I mean, unless you have pets, nobody's really relying on your income. And in that event, your pets can likely survive off the money that you already have.
And just to be clear, people will say to me, life insurance is so I have somebody to like bury me. No, that's burial insurance. Your life insurance claim might be 6 or 12 months before they pay that out. And if you haven't buried you in 6 months, we got a problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's very true.
I'm just saying.
Although mine says keep me on the shelf until a certain point. So
yeah, but you got to pay for the cremation at least. Like,
yeah.
And by the way, if we try to make silly jokes at life insurance, it's because, this can get really morbid really quickly. And I think when you're looking at term life insurance, Bree said work with a professional to figure out if you need it. I want to be clear. You don't work with the professional who's selling you the stuff to tell you if you need it. Like, that's different.
You need to look at your financial planner.
Yeah, you're looking for somebody like a CFP professional, a fiduciary, somebody you pay for their time. I want to kind of like remind people, if you go to a financial advisor or whatever they want to call themselves, because remember, financial advisor is not a legal term, so anyone can use it. If you go to a financial advisor and they say there is no fee for me working with you, that means they're being paid by somebody else to work with you, which usually is commissions or some other fee built in. And if you're not paying the bill, they may give you valuable advice. That's like going to the doctor and they're like, yeah, there's no bill today. It was paid for by XYZ drug. Like, yeah, I'm not going to that doctor.
Yeah, because you want to foot the bill and make sure you're getting advice for you and not advice that is told to be given to you.
Yep. Any service that is free means you're the product. You're what's being sold. All right, we go to term life insurance, and when does it make sense? I've had some clients where I did have one who had a very specific bequeath result. So they wanted to give X amount of money to their nephews. That's fine. And that's actually a way to kind of check the box. I bought this insurance. If I die, my nephews get $1 million. If you're kind of in the die with zero approach, probably less of an issue, but sometimes that exists. For charities, that can also work, but also we're going to have a debate about should I put my money into the market and invest it? or should I buy insurance? So remember, life insurance is insurance. It is not an investment. And you'll see this stuff online. Well, I invest through my life insurance. No, that's not exactly it. And what they're talking about is whole life insurance has a combination of insurance and investing together. And as I always say, that's like a spork. It's a spoon and a fork that does neither job well. And you got a whole bunch of fees in there, and it is not what you want. And I think, when you're looking at term life insurance, there has to be some type of situation. Like another example that I've run into is like you are part of a business and that life insurance buys out your part so the business can keep going. That's a very common structure in businesses. And in actuality, the business may pay for that life insurance on you. There's some like cases like that, but they're very few and far between. My overall message is unless somebody needs your money, you probably don't need the life insurance.
Yeah, absolutely. And the business buyout can be such a big thing. It's one of the things you get harped on in the CFP for is they ask you tons of questions about the business buyout and how that works. If it's going to be the business paying for it, if individuals are paying for it. There's a lot of different structures, but that's not a common case for most people.
So if you're taking away the message that child-free people, there's a low need for life insurance, that is it. Now, let's go into some of the fancier life insurance. And really, my answer on all of these is don't buy them. But I want to talk through like why not to buy them, because they're really, really popular right now. So if you've been on whatever social media is your poison now, you've probably seen something either that they call it's called infinite banking or UIL, which is universal index life, which is just a really fancy way of saying whole life insurance. But they're really popular right now. Have you seen these, Brie?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, funny story, as I was coming home from, I don't know, one of the times I came down and visited you this fall, and I was in my Lyft home, and the guy asked me what I did, and I said, I'm a financial planner. And he said, what do you think about IULs? And I just laughed, and I said, I think they're great for the person who sells them. And then I thought about it. I'm like, I'm in this vehicle with this person. Maybe he sells them. I don't know. Turns out, I asked him, I was like, do you sell them? Do you have one? He's like, no, but I'm thinking about buying one. That was the end of our conversation. We did not talk any further.
Yep. So IULs, kind of funny on this one. They can post on social media and be like, this is the best thing. You're banking on yourself, blah, 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 because it's not a regulated product in the same way as like an investment. This is an insurance product. So they're allowed to go like give you the tough sell. And what's happened is somebody who's making the content is trying to sell you something because they get a big old commission. And if you're getting the theme that those people selling life insurance often don't have the best interest of their clients, I'm saying that very nicely. Like they sell their soul to sell life insurance. That probably is pretty close. I mean, I'll give you an example. I had a client whose niece went and did an internship at one of the big insurance companies over the summer. And what they said was, we will give you an internship, an unpaid internship for the summer, as long as you bring me a list of 100 people and you bring 5 of your family members in to get quoted for life insurance. Like, how is that acceptable?
Yeah, it's so disheartening. It's so disheartening. I met with somebody recently who was one of those family members who got their name down. And I said, I saw your name come in and I saw this and I specifically pulled that I wanted to talk to you because I don't want you buying this policy. It just really rubs me raw that that's even something that people do.
And I think the sadder part of this is I'll have people that have an insurance policy, had it for a while. And I'm like, why'd you get it? And they're like, well, my uncle was selling. And I'm like, yep, your uncle or whoever it was took advantage of you. Now, let's be real. They might think it's a good idea because that's what that's a script they're following, but it doesn't work. Here's the deal on IULs. IULs are whole life insurance. So we're a combination of investment and insurance. And when they say you're banking on yourself and that does not have tax consequences, they are correct. Because what happens is the first money you put in, the money you put in for your premiums, you can take back out tax-free. Well, I can do that with my savings account too. Like I put money in there, I take it out. I don't get taxed on taking money out of my savings account. And the difference is nobody's taking a commission on my savings account. That's what I think people are missing. One of my colleagues is actually doing a whole study on this, and he went and bought a policy and worked through it, and really interesting. Andy Panko's working on it, and he's like, "Look, I understand this stuff, but still, I'm confused by reading a lot of this. Like, it's hard." Yeah, of course, the insurance folks will poke back on us. Well, you're CFPs, you don't know insurance, blah 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 blah. You're correct. I don't sell insurance that people don't need, and I fight when people want to buy it. Like, I think what's happening is over time, you've seen whole life, universal life, IULs, these like different terms for the same thing. Well, why do they have to keep changing the name? It's kind of like Comcast is now Xfinity. Comcast sucked. Xfinity still sucks. Like, come on, Bree.
Yeah, exactly.
They changed the name. Oh, it's different. No, like their service still sucks. Like,
Yep.
and that's what's happening with these insurance policies. And the other thing I have people watch out for is they'll get sold a life insurance policy and told it's long-term care. Now, this one's a very important one for you to watch out for child-free folks. Here's how this works. They will give you a life insurance policy. Let's say it's $1 million coverage, and it will have a rider, which is an attachment to it, that covers some long-term care. Every time I've looked at these, the coverage has been minuscule in comparison. And what happens is, as a child-free person, you don't really need the life insurance. So you're paying for something you don't need to get something else. That's why when we talk about long-term care, we're talking about standalone long-term care insurance policies. There are, if you cannot qualify for long-term care insurance standalone, there are some annuities we can look at. They're not my favorite, but there are some other options. But this like life insurance with a little bit of long-term care on it makes people feel like they are covered, but they're not.
Yeah. And it's very important to understand that and know and have clarity on exactly what you have, because you can be sold a policy and think it's one thing. Somebody recently thought they was sold something, went and looked at it, and like, this is not what you have at all. And that is often not clarified. And that I've seen it over and over again to feel comfortable enough saying, like, many times these things are not clarified. They're just sold to a client. And maybe they use words that it's like this or like that. And so then the client feels that what they have is correct and it doesn't really match what they need.
Yep. I had an insurance agent. I was working on a file for a client, and they were getting quotes for long-term care insurance. And in long-term care insurance, I like there's what's called a single pay. You pay the whole thing up front, set it and forget it. And this agent, who was really nice, I mean, I know him. He's like, okay, I got you this quote for long-term care, but if you looked at a comparable life insurance policy. And I said, well, life insurance doesn't have a benefit to child-free people. He says, yeah, but your cost will be lower. I said, all right, let me see the quote. Let me actually look at it. And so we went and looked at it, and the quote for long-term care provided enough care for 3 years. The long-term care life insurance combo was 2 for the same price. And I'm like, dude, we're not comparing apples to apples. And he's like, well, maybe they don't need that much long-term care. I'm like, no, I'm quoting 3 years long-term care for a reason. But what happens is, I believe they get higher commissions for selling life insurance. I don't know that for sure, but that's why they push it so much. And one of those kind of fun ones on commissions for life insurance, depending on the policy, they get commissions for your entire life. It's called a trail. Like, they're just making money off you for the rest of your life. And believe it or not, they can make a lot of money doing it. Yeah, I was joking. I had somebody the other day who was working at one of those places and is now trying to get out. And I'm like, well, to be honest, you'll make more money selling your soul and selling insurance. And they were like, yes, I know that. They're like, and I'm still getting out. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm good with that. But I think you have to be careful to understand what you're buying and making sure it matches your needs, because there's actually an issue of being over-insured. If you're buying insurance on stuff that is unlikely to happen to you, or you're going to have little value, which is why we don't buy much life insurance, you're over-insured. You're paying money that otherwise should go towards your drinking bill if you're Brie, or your investments if you're other people.
That sounds quite dramatic. It does. Yeah, absolutely. Definitely look at what it is and look at it what it is over time, because I've seen plenty of cases where, there's somebody I know, they had life insurance, person passed, got a payout, and I went and did the math on it. And it was funny because I did the math and they also did the math, but both of us did not tell each other until much later. And they said, I figured it out. And basically all it was a savings account. I didn't make any money on that. And I said, yeah, I did the math too when you told me all this, and I figured out the exact same thing, but I didn't think it was right to say anything because they didn't ask for that. It was just, they told me the numbers and I was curious. And so you have to know what is right for you and when are you better off investing that money as well versus spending it out on insurance.
Yep. So then the other question becomes, all right, I bought one of these policies. What do I do? And my answer on here is, this is one of those, you go to a financial professional who's not selling insurance and look at it. Sometimes we can roll over the life insurance into something you can use, like long-term care insurance. Sometimes you just cash it out. I don't know why. I've had this one a few times. Well, my parents have this Gerber life insurance policy. And I'm not picking on Gerber, but it's just, that is what this is. This is a specific policy from when I'm a baby. And they've been paying on it for 35 years. Should I keep paying on it? And I'm like, well, let's look at it. And in most of those cases, the answer is just get what you can back in premium and close it. But like, people are like, but I've been paying on it for 35 years. Correct. And that is one of those plans that, like, taking advantage of people who have kids. They're like, well, you're worried about your newborn, right? You should buy them life insurance. Like, seriously? That just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it's kind of gross to me how people will do that, because I've seen those policies before.
And we'll have to do a separate episode on annuities, but same type of thing. If you've bought into annuities, sometimes we can convert it. Sometimes we can cash out. I don't know why frequently I'm getting kind of my parents have this life insurance on me. Should I keep paying it? Those are all good questions. But the bottom line is, do you need it? And if you have that cash sitting in front of you, would you keep paying this bill? I think the challenge with the insurance policies, at least for me, is none of them are the same. They're all written each got its own thing, and you got to figure it out. And man, there are times where I'm like, what in the world is this product? And I'll go and talk to the insurance company and I still won't have an idea of it. And I'm like, they said you had documents 30 pages long and you got to figure that out. It gets kind of nasty. I mean, the bottom line is, if you're child free, you have to have a reason to get life insurance rather than just defaulting to having it.
If you enjoyed the show, please consider leaving a rating or review. We'd love to keep the conversation going. Please let us know your thoughts wherever comments are available, or email us at media@childfreewealth.com. To stay up to date, find and follow Childfree Wealth on social media. If you're interested in working with us, learn more by visiting our website, childfreewealth.com. We'll see you next time.